Guys, I'm sad for a couple of reasons. One reason being because I went 10-6 in my predictions last week. Now, whereas that record itself isn't too bad, it's actually a bit better than what I did last week. It's the fact that 3 of the 6 games I got wrong are games that I easily could have gotten right if I just didn't try to be different. I voted against the 49ers, Patriots, and Bills. I thought the Patriots would do bad in the Miami Heat. I thought the 49ers would do bad with all those injuries and against the September Saints. And the Bills, well, I just thought they would do bad. And guess what? They all went on to win. So I could have easily been 13-3 this week. The other reason I'm kind of upset is because apparently there's a bit of a glitch or a fault in the YouTube viewership system. I don't know what it is exactly, but apparently people are getting less views, including myself, which would explain the descent in views on my channel. So on one hand, I'm kind of relieved that it might not be something I'm doing wrong, but on the other hand, I still feel some type of way that this is happening to me while I'm vulnerable and small, but hopefully we get over it. Anyway, to the predictions. First up, you got the Miami Dolphins taking on the Buffalo Bills. The Bills, as I mentioned, were a team that I got wrong on predictions last week because luck just wasn't on my side this week. I mean, luck is never really on my side, so it's not surprising. Meanwhile, the Dolphins had a much better performance than whatever that was in week 1, but they still lost, so they're 0-2 right now. They looked much better, but still not very good. Like, that was the Patriots you went against. Like, that should be maybe not a free win, but you should have had that one. Now, whereas it is possible for the Dolphins to pull off some crazy shit here, I think I've learned my lesson on pulling for too many upsets, so I'm not going to try it this time. I got the Bills winning for obvious reasons. Next, you got the Bengals taking on the Vikings. The Bengals managed to wrestle a W away from the Jacksonville Jaguars, so because of that, they are now comfortably sitting at 2-0. However, they lost Joe Burrow. Not for the whole season, but he's gone for a while. That hurts. Cincinnati's already proved a couple years ago that without Joe Burrow, they're not all that. They're not a great team. But luckily for them, they'll be going against another not great team, the Vikings. Vikings, remember in week 1 when you played like shit against the Bears for 3 quarters and in the 4th quarter you turned all the way up? And then I said you needed to play how you did in the 4th quarter throughout the whole game? They did the complete opposite. They played like they did in the first 3 quarters against the Bears the whole game against the Falcons. Like, this is what I'm talking about. The Vikings just do the opposite of what I hope they do. For example, I was hoping that they would be able to take care of Cincinnati's quarterback problem and get a win out of that, but because that's what I think, I don't think the Vikings are going to win now. So I'm going to pick the Bengals to win. Look, I don't know how that logic's going to work out, but we'll see. Next, you got the Texans taking on the Jaguars. The Texans, I don't really know what's going on with y'all. You have yet to score 20 points in a game. That offense is concerning. I understand that both games were really close, but you can't keep riding on that excuse. You need to be the one to clutch up occasionally, at least. They'll be going against the Jaguars, who lost to the Bengals, but it was a respectable loss. Like, they put up a great fight. I thought the Bengals would stomp them. By no means do the Jaguars look like a real scary team or anything like that, but they look pretty solid. This will be a very interesting game. Well, not to me, because I don't watch South teams, but like in general, this will most likely be a close game. I'm gonna pick the Texans to win this one because, as I mentioned, they gotta eventually win some of these close games, and I think this will be the first one for them this year. Next, you got the Colts going to Tennessee to take on the Titans. Now, I don't want to hear, "Oh, the Colts are 2-0. You gotta start taking them seriously now." I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't give a fuck. They have not beat a real team yet. They beat a disorganized Dolphins and barely beat the Broncos. I'm still not impressed, but they are going against the Titans, probably the worst team so far for them. As for the Titans, I was wrong last week about them not scoring any touchdowns. They did end up scoring some touchdowns against the Rams. They still got their ass beat though, so I was right on that. I feel like the Colts are a better team here, but I just can't envision seeing this logo and a 3-0 next to it. I just can't. And it's a divisional game. I'm not supposed to be picking upsets, but I'm picking the Titans. I'm picking the Titans. They're gonna get their win here, okay? I don't even think this is a hot take. Like, the Titans could win this game, and I hope they do. Next up, you got the Raiders going against the Redskins. See that, Raiders? This is exactly why no one wants you on primetime. And it was a late-ass game, too. I could have been doing so many other things, but I devoted my time to watching Monday Night Football, and that's what I get. Please don't put the Raiders on prime time for like a couple years. And it's not like they went against a top dog team either. The Chargers are not all that, and the Raiders look like a deer in headlights. Like, I don't understand how you could look so lost against a team like that. But they did, and meanwhile, the Redskins on Thursday night, they went against the Packers. They lost. This is a respectable loss. It wasn't like an ass beating or anything. I'm not even going to do a deep dive into this one. I don't see a shot in hell that the Raiders win this game. Redskins got this. Next, you got a rematch of one of last year's NFC playoff games. You got the Rams taking on the Eagles in Philadelphia. The Eagles went into Kansas City and slapped the Chiefs on the ass and dared them to do something about it. Meanwhile, the Rams absolutely beat the Titans. Like, as solid as the Rams look, I need to see them go against, like, a good team first. The Rams have looked pretty solid up to this point, but they have been going against some subpar teams. I need to see them do good against, a good team, like the Eagles here. Last year, the Rams couldn't stop a child running away from home. Saquon Barkley especially was slapping him around in both games he went against them. And whereas the Rams defense does look pretty good here in these first couple of weeks, I'm sitting up here wondering if it'll matter against a team like the Philadelphia Eagles. And quite honestly, I don't think it'll. I think their defense will be better, but not good enough. I got the Eagles winning this one. Next, you got the Falcons taking on the Panthers. I'm not going to watch this game. I don't care about this game, but I'm going to pick the Falcons to win because I do think they're a much better team than the Panthers. But that's not exactly a high bar to jump. Here's a much more interesting game. You got the Steelers going down to New England to take on the Patriots. The Patriots beat the Dolphins in Miami. I'm happy for you guys. I am salty that I picked you guys to lose and then you didn't lose. But anyway, y'all won. Good for you. And this is what I mean. This is the year they showed that they can make some shit happen, that they can make some noise in the AFC. And if y'all really want to back up my point, you can go ahead and beat the Steelers here. And speaking of the Steelers, what happened here? Looks like a normal kickoff. Where does it go? Oh my God. The bullshit's starting already. It's starting already in Pittsburgh. Look, I'm just going to cope and say that the Steelers would have won that game if that didn't happen. Assuming some shit like that does not happen again, I feel the Steelers are a much more better team than the Patriots. Two great veteran coaches going at it, but one has much more talent than the other, and I'm going to put my money on the one with that talent. Next, you get the Green Bay Packers taking on the Cleveland Browns. The Packers, I'm liking what I'm seeing in these first 2 weeks. They're looking like a pretty solid team. And they're not beating scrubs either. They got the Lions and now the Redskins. Like, this is the shit Green Bay fans wanted to see, guys. All you have to do is keep this energy going. Have some consistency. The Packers have struggled to have said consistency over the past few years. Even the Browns are more consistent than the Packers. Like, they don't pick and choose when they want to be good or not. They're just going to perform like big ol' rear end. The Browns' run defense was pretty solid against the Ravens, to my surprise, but obviously that wasn't even remotely good enough. And that also doesn't matter this week because the Packers haven't been too great of a rushing team up to this point. So with that said, go Pack go. Next, you got the Jets taking on the Buccaneers. So my biggest takeaways from the Jets last week is, one, don't ever bet on them or predict that they'll pull off any type of upset unless they're going against an equally shit team, at which point you still probably don't want to be rooting for them. And two, Justin Fields is gone, at least for a week or so. Big loss for them. So big, in fact, that I don't see a shot in hell they win this game. Buccaneers got this. Next, you got the Denver Broncos taking on the LA Chargers. So the Broncos almost beat the Colts last week, but they didn't because, honestly, I didn't look too deep into it, but something to do with putting the hands on the back of a player while trying to block a kick. You can't do that. As stupid as it sounds, I know. It sucks, but, it's the rules. Can't do that and all that. So they kind of handed the Colts the win there. Meanwhile, the Chargers kind of just spanked on the Raiders. I mean, you can't even really say spanked. They actually kind of handed them, the game a couple of times, especially in that fourth quarter. Gave the Raiders multiple opportunities to get back into it, but the Raiders are so bad that they couldn't even do it. So Kind of a free win for the Chargers last week. The Chargers did lose Khalil Mack for a few weeks, so he'll be out for some time. However, I still have belief in the Chargers to rip this game away from the Broncos. And I know I'm not supposed to be falling for it this easily. Chargers show promise, get everyone's hopes up, and then wipe their ass with it. I know. Look, just trust me on this one, okay? Next, you got the September Saints taking on the Seahawks. September Saints. How are y'all 0-2 right now? This doesn't make sense. This isn't computing. 2 plus 2 is not 5. The earth is not flat. You know, like, how are the September Saints 0-2? Y'all just went against the 49ers. They're in a wheelchair right now. I actually watched that game, and I know exactly why the September Saints lost. Drop passes left and right. And every time they try to make a good play, it would get called back on some bullshit. Try not to get mad. They're just not taking the opportunities that they're being handed. And then over with the Seahawks, they got that lucky-ass win on the Steelers. It's being played in Seattle, but I don't think that matters. I think the Saints are going to march up in there and stomp them birds. Call me unrealistic all you want. You know what's more unrealistic? Seeing an 0-3 September Saints. Like, stop it. Saints are winning. Next, you got the Dallas Cowboys versus the Chicago Bears. The Bears got by the Lions in Detroit. That's all there is to say about them. That's the most deserving 0-2 of any team so far. They'll be defending against the Cowboys, who just put up an overtime thriller against the Giants. The fact that the Giants is just so weird to me. But hey, it was a good game. Not going to complain. And I can't get over how we have kickers now just casually booting 60-plus yard field goals, like, consistently too. That's crazy to me. That is one of the few things that has improved over the years in the NFL. Especially Brandon Aubrey. This dude kicked that shit like it was an extra point. As far as performance goes, the Cowboys in week 2 were kind of backwards from how they were in week 1. In week 1, they started out strong and then finished underwhelming. In week 2, they started underwhelming and finished strong. My question is, why can't you just be good throughout the whole 60 minutes? Like, why can you only perform great in one half? That can't keep happening. Though perhaps it can against the Bears, because as the Vikings proved, you only need one quarter to beat the Bears. So, yeah, Cowboys, y'all got this one. Next, you got the Cardinals taking on the 49 injuries. The 49ers got that handicap logo tattooed onto their backs, and somehow they're still 2-0. And I don't want to hear that they're not beating anyone. They beat the September Saints, and they beat the Seahawks, who, according to a lot of people, are supposed to be this playoff team and all this crazy shit. So, no doubling back now. The 49ers are deservingly 2-0. In fact, I would argue that the 49ers opponents so far have been more challenging than the Cardinals opponents. Well, they both went against the September Saints. But the Cardinals just went against the Panthers. That's about as light as it gets. Now, it's being played in San Francisco. It's the Niners' home opener. But this exact game last year pissed me off, because the 49ers were making all kinds of great plays, and they blew a good lead. Please don't do that shit. Please. If you're going to lose, just lose regular. Like, you don't want the... Come on. The 49er defense has been clutch for the first 2 weeks. Yes, 49er and clutch in the same sentence. As weird as it would be to see the 49 injuries 3-0, I got them beating the Cardinals this time. I don't know. It's a divisional game, so it could go either way, but, like, the Cardinals just don't strike me. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Just let me pick the 49ers this time. Next, you got the Chiefs taking on the Giants on Sunday Night Football. Why is this a primetime game? No, I don't care that the Giants had a little overtime, a little thriller last week. I don't care. You really think they're going to do it again? As a matter of fact, they just might, because the Chiefs might do that thing where they only barely beat their opponent because blowouts aren't really part of their dark magic spell book. And now that I'm really thinking about it, I think that's exactly what's going to happen. It's going to be a close-ass game for no reason. Last game, Russell Wilson led the Giants to overtime as he threw for 450 yards. You see, look, I never talk down to Mr. Unlimited. You know, worst case scenario, he's cringy in some people's eyes, but that doesn't correlate to his performance on the field. And on the field, this man is great. He just keeps playing for poopy butt teams. Alright, I take it back. This might actually be a good game. I just don't know who I got winning this one. Giants, do not disappoint me like your green cousins did. I'm picking the Giants to upset the Chiefs. That's right. That is my real upset for the week. The Chiefs are supposed to be a great team still, but their punk asses are on too. So you know what I mean? They're clearly doing something wrong, and I don't know if they'll snap that little curse they got going on the Giants. But I'm picking the Giants to win this one. And lastly, you get what should be a beautiful Monday night game between the Detroit Lions and the Baltimore Ravens. Both of these teams dropped 40 plus on their divisional losers last week. Now, historically, the Ravens have always been spanking on the Lions. The Lions' only win over the Ravens was way back in 2005. So, that's not a stat I want to see if I'm rooting for the Lions to win here. Ooh, and it's being played in Baltimore. Yeah, Ravens, y'all got this. These are two brawlers right here. This should be a great game, but just look like historically, I'm one of those people like if you can't seem to beat a team, I lose faith in you. You know what I mean? And the Lions haven't beat the Ravens since 2005, and before that, never. I'm sorry, I can't root for them to win here. I got the Ravens. But it is good to see the Lions back to dropping 50 points in some of these games, bending these teams over their desk and giggling pervertedly while unbuckling their pants, and I'll let your imagination do the rest. And I really need to start getting a lot more games right so I could pick my record back up because as it stands now, this is disgusting.